Welcome to Inside Arm Wrestling, the home for all news of arm wrestling, fitness, strength sports, and fitness competitions. I know, folks, I like to kind of do a little bit of inflection in my voice from time to time, keeping it real, standing on business, as my daughter has said, between swag, standing on business, what's another one, bussin', all of these great terms that my daughter just basically pulls her hair out while I'm wondering what it is that her dad is really trying to do with these kind of cult terms, these new wave terms. So we're standing on biz today, guys, standing on some business. Folks, a lot of times in life we get into places that kind of captivate us. And this past weekend, I was at the Fit Expo up at the LA Convention Center. I love going to the Fit Expos for many reasons. They usually have a great tournament with Bill Collins and his son and the Collins family with the UAL. They delivered again this past weekend. Kudos to Bill and his family, especially in the wake of some personal news that had the family concerned. And I'm glad to hear that both of the children are pulling through. Older children had a little bit of an accident on the highway, but they are doing better. So ultimately, I'm super happy to hear about that. But in one of the things I like to do at the Fit Expo is I really take the time to go around and meet people. And meeting people does a couple of things for me. Number one, it keeps me comfortable talking in front of people. Number two, it lets me learn a little bit more about who they are, what products they represent, and number three, you never know when there's a relationship to be built. So in doing so and making my walk around, I was passing by the far back corner where they had a panel going on. And in my ear, out of the panel, they were talking quickly about recidivism in prisons and, helping prison reform or prison bridging from prisons to back into society, and how fitness can help that and program that and bring some advantages to those who are coming through incarceration. It's certainly over the years of owning health clubs, one of the values that I always had in my clubs was that I would work with halfway homes and outreach programs, helping those coming through prisons, establishing them in the workforce, giving them some education in terms of learning maybe how to be a trainer or a manager, or just giving them some hope. And so I sat down at this little Q&A. Certainly the eyes on, all focus on was huge Julius Maddox. If you aren't a fan of Julius Maddox in the world of powerlifting, you should be a fan of Julius Maddox now after I've listened to some of what he is spearheading as a person. So Julius Maddox, for those who don't know who he is, holds the raw bench press record in competition somewhere in the 780s. When you say somewhere in the 780s, he is 50 pounds, 60 pounds more than anyone else out there. He is just, let me tell you something. He is a monster of a man. I have the pleasure of knowing Leroy Walker, who had a high 680, I think, lift, number 11 or 12 in the world. Pleasure of knowing and being friends with Scott Mendelson, who's had a raw bench of well over 700. I think somewhere in the 17s. Both very big men, but let me tell you something. Julius Maddox is no short of a giant in terms of his size. He is just a mountain of a man. So he was on a panel with some notables. One of the notables being Larry Wheels, the other one being Brandon Copeland. Another gentleman named TD Smash, known as Thomas Davis, who has had a 700-pound bench press, which he did through a full strength competition. And we'll kind of hit on that in a second. And Don Singleton, he was there. And there was another gentleman or two there, and I apologize I didn't get everybody's names down. But I sat down and I listened to these individual stories. And I did a little research on Sons of a Beast, and this was brought together between C.T. Fletcher and Julius Maddox and these gentlemen to really talk about some real social issues in today's world when it comes to men and it comes to people in general, but definitely when it comes to men. Uh, and I'll be honest with you, I sat there, I think they started maybe at 11:05. I might have got there a minute or two after, sat through the whole conference, listened to these men's stories, very heartfelt, fun to listen to. Listen, you put these guys on stage, they were no less amusing and comedic with each other than they were heartfelt in their stories. But I wanted to highlight their program because I honestly think there's a tremendous amount of value with making sure that programs like this are very well supported, whether it's through media, whether it's through finance, whether it's through activity. So I wanted to take a minute and take a look at the sonsofabeast.org programs. And you go onto their webpage as we're scrolling through, it says our programs. One of the things they talk about is financial freedom. They want to boost financial literacy, offer job opportunities, and advocate for health insurance and responsible parenting. Now, I want to also preface this with the thought that these gentlemen are talking and talking to a vast audience. There's no one group that necessarily is being highlighted here in terms of generality. Now, there are some specific groups of individuals that are being highlighted: single dads, men with depression, men coming through the prison systems and reacclimating themselves to the world and social settings outside of the institutionalized setting that they're in. But I think some of these messages resonate home for a lot of people. Another thing they talk about is support for single fathers. I could tell you that Don Singleton was very emotional with his testimony on his sons, talking about breaking the cycle of parenting as a father. He was in tears. He was emotional, and he was emotional because his story was real. The value of him having two older sons and one younger son, knowing that his fathering of his two older sons was in the line with maybe the fathering techniques of his father, which was almost as an absentee father and some of the value. And then coming to now have a 7-year-old and realizing those mistakes and giving that 7-year-old the father figure that he needs, and dealing then with the resentment of his two older children who sees this man now and judges him fair or unfairly as someone who didn't give them the same value of fathering that they so desired, and how to break that cycle. So a true testimony. I thought that was very compelling. They talked about breaking the prison cycle, how they get involved with offering job support, aid, health support, post-jail guidelines, fitness certs for inmates rebuilding their lives. They talked about veterans, how to provide mental health support. They took a lot of time talking about depression and toxic masculinity. And I think that there's a value of what they're saying because many older men have been taught stoicism is really the value of what a man should be. There's no value in a man being emotional or showing his emotion or not masking the emotion. But they hit upon a good point. They stated that depression is real, toxic masculinity can be real. It certainly has real forms of identity in today's day and age. They talked about masking, failures and emotions. And I thought it was very interesting because all of the panel in themselves really had a value of almost every little thing. They talked about depression and how these fitness, icons, today's fitness icons are vulnerable. They talked about how many of them had a real life of bad decisions and how some of them have spent some time behind bars, and how that has affected them. And they've talked about how this organization helps. So I think that there's a real message there. Part of the website also has a Fitness for Life. It looks like they reach out to young children. And then obviously we talked about depression with Mental Health Matters. And as you go through there, they have a list of events. If you hit the event tab, they have the annual SOB experience that they just had back in November. They are promoting, which is not up yet, but I'm sure will be, is a bench press a-thon, a marathon of bench pressing. I believe Don was telling me that it's going to be multiple days of bench pressing 135 in succession, and keeping it moving. I don't know if there's an intermittent stage to it where they bring one lifter in to do reps and they bring another and they just line them up, and how many hours they do of that is, I think they were saying 48 hours, with CT Fletcher being the last at 135, 135 pounds to lift. So I'm sure that they're going to have a poster for their events. They have merchandise here. It says coming soon, but I'm told when I was out there that it will be uploaded. They were wearing Sonz of a Beast t-shirts while they were there, so I have to imagine that they have some merchandise ready to go. And ultimately, folks, in the world of fitness, there are doers and there are don'ters, right? There are guys that go out and do, and there are guys that don't. And it doesn't make any one group better than the other. I can tell you that some people just don't feel comfortable being in front of the limelight and doing things in a more prolific or social media bound way. There are guys that are drawn to being able to testify their stories and really try to reach out to those who will listen and take it in. Ultimately, the stories resonate. And what I can say from leaving their Q&A was each of those individuals showed that they are human. They showed that they have faults, they have weaknesses, they have needs, they have love, they have brotherhood, they have family now. They spoke about how each of them have support systems, and some of them have multiple support systems, meaning amongst themselves. They talk about how they talk, and they talk about their stories, and they live it, and they preach it. It really was a touching point where a young 15-year-old stood up who lost his father. His uncle was there. They were grieving. In a sheer emotional value, the young man, the 15-year-old, asked how can he use fitness or continue to use fitness to get over the grief, and it ended in multiple panel members coming down and giving him a hug. They took a picture together at the end. These guys are doers. They saw an opportunity to try to positively affect someone's life, and they came off the stage. And I think that really resonates. And that's really one of the reasons why I think that doing this episode on Sonz of a Beast is extremely important. So we're going to keep Sonz of a Beast out there on our radar. As they have more events, we're going to cover them. Certainly if we can get out the word about their program on a small end. They always say that I'd rather have 1% of 100 people instead of 100% of one person. So hopefully we can be 1% of hundreds of people for them who get the words out. But certainly, folks, if you have the time, I think these individuals are worth their weight in gold. And let me tell you something, Julius Maddox is a big man. So if he's worth his weight in gold, he's a very wealthy man. Spiritually, I'm sure he's extremely wealthy. But let me tell you something. I've yet to see a man that wide and that thick. Obviously, if you're benching almost 800 pounds, I think that comes with the territory. But he is a big man. He is a super large human, but really a super nice guy. I got to shake his hand and meet him, and I was very proud to be able to say hi to him. So, folks, keep Sons of a Beach on your radar. It's worth it. If you've got some time or some effort, be supportive of them. I think it goes a long way. And who doesn't like CT Fletcher? He wasn't there yesterday, but everybody loves CT Fletcher. He is a fitness icon, and the man continues to give back every way he can. So kudos to these gentlemen. I'm going to continue to support them every way I can. But that wraps it up for our episode of Inside Arm Wrestling. Let me see if I can give you a better voice inflection here. This has been Greg Sharp reminding you to train hard, pull smart, and lift safe. All right, folks, I tried that, but I'm not sure it was great. Have a good one. We'll see you in a week. Have a great week out there. Thank you, arm wrestlers in the fitness world. Folks, if you like these stories and you want to see more, please hit the like button and subscribe to our page. Also, hit the notification bell underneath the video so that way you're notified every time a new video comes out. And if you're on social media, specifically Instagram, go to the World Series of Arm Wrestling Instagram page. Please follow it. We'll try to follow you back, but it'll keep you up to date with all of the news and events in the world of arm wrestling.